So if you go into something with a starting point, assumption, paradigm, perspective, or belief, anything you come up with downstream, second, third, fourth, fifth order, is going to be faulty, malfunctional, and broken because where you started wasn't accurate. Does that make sense? Think of it like this. For a very long time, people believed that in our galaxy system, everything revolved around the Earth, right? And for the longest time, the math wasn't fully mathing on that. And whenever the math wouldn't math, people just try to chalk it up to something. Finally, along came, I believe it was Copernicus, and said, no, hold up. The math, it really isn't mathing here. And he's the one that officially, I believe, stated, no, everything in the galaxy revolves around the sun, not the Earth. If you know the backstory, there was a lot of violent resistance to that perspective, that paradigm shift, and yet shortly thereafter, it was seen as accurate and true, and it was adopted, and now it's the accurate perspective, right? What I'm going to say here about Christianity, modern day Christianity, is as big of a fundamental shift in perspective on the scale of being full on tectonic, right? Where it changes everything. One of the biggest mistakes, if not the single biggest lie and mistake that modern Christianity pushes and purports, is any version or idea of God being outside of us. And that is the beginning faulty assumption, perspective, or belief that if you start with it downstream, no matter what your intellectualism is, your theology is, denomination that you're in, there's just going to be malfunction and dysfunction. If you actually read the Bible and understand it, you will see that very clearly it's repeatedly stating, and literally, and I quote, the kingdom of heaven is within. And it also repeatedly states to seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and then all these things will be added unto you. Well, first, you got to seek the kingdom of heaven. And where does the kingdom of heaven? Within. So where's God? Within. Now, I'm summarizing and truncating here very generously. I have a feeling that I'm going to be making a lot of videos about this in the days, weeks, and potentially years to come. And I want to state a quick side note statement. I'm not a Christian. I was born into a Christian family. I was raised Christian. I've read the Bible, the Quran, many other sacred texts. I today would not call myself, nor do I call myself a Christian. However, I do call myself a believer in Christ consciousness, and I do my best to live Christ-like. And there is a very drastic difference. So I don't want anybody to see me, hear me, and think, oh, that's what a Christian is. I'm not. I also wouldn't call myself a Christian because what modern day Christianity is not who and what I know God to be. And it's amazing how millions of people can read the same book, aka the Bible, and then have such different perspectives. How's that possible if God is God? Well, again, if you start with the faulty assumption that God is not in you but outside of you, now what happens is there can be endless ways of debating all the different ways that are right or wrong about how you're supposed to get to God, get God to love you, be on God's right side, get right with God, you got to go this way to God, you got to go that way to God. If you study the history of religion in general, there's so much history to religion being used to mass control populations. I'm not going to go down that tangent right, and that's not even a tangent, it's a whole topic in and of itself. I'm not going to get into that topic right now. The main focus in this video for me is to simply state this. One, I believe that the Bible is the single most important book on earth. Two, the Bible is grossly, egregiously misunderstood and misrepresented by the overwhelming majority of Christians and what the church is today. Okay. Three, the Bible is not a book of religion. It is one of the most fascinating, absolutely most fascinating books on earth about who we are as humans, spirituality, our true identity, what's really in our DNA, and Christ consciousness, aka kingdom of heaven. Let it be on earth as it is in heaven. Where's heaven? Within. What are you supposed to do first? Seek the kingdom of heaven. So hold on. If the Bible says to seek the kingdom of heaven, that the kingdom of heaven is within, and your first job is to seek the kingdom of heaven, which is within, and then the whole point was for the heaven to be on earth, let it be on earth as it is in heaven, and heaven's in you. Well, wait, so what it's saying is that what's inside you, let what's inside your consciousness be manifested out in the world. Listen, this is just a primer video, really, because there's so much I have to say about this. And this is the understanding of human consciousness, is the underpinning and the fundamental foundation to everything else that I've learned and do. And for a long time, I've hesitated to talk about this topic directly, to share it directly here on YouTube, because I understand that from many people's perspectives, any mention of the Bible can be seen as religiosity, right? Dogma. It can bring up a lot of pain. However, I would be not doing my job and not being honest if I didn't share completely what it is that drives my success, drives my understanding, and what is the core engine behind me elevating always and in all ways in my life. And so I have to be completely honest. It's like somebody who, man, let's imagine if I didn't share deeply on this and in detail on this, it would be much like a bodybuilder who does steroids but says they're natty. That's how I've started to feel about it. It's like if I'm getting all these muscle results and I'm telling you I'm natty, but I'm on steroids, or if I'm just not telling you that I'm on steroids and I give you 80% of the picture, but I don't give you the last 20% that I do steroids, what are you, am I being honest? Right? No, right? Because I'm not giving the full picture. So therefore, am I actually helping you elevate? No, because I'm not giving you the full roadmap for what's worked for me. So if I'm serious about helping my fellow man, all fellow humans, elevate in their consciousness so that you can have an empowered life, then it is my responsibility, I believe, and duty to share the entire roadmap, the entire formula, the entire recipe to what is working for me. And the Bible is a huge part of that. Everything else rests on it. So if you look at watch any of my previous videos, all of it in one way or another is congruent with and rests upon my understanding of the Bible. So in the days and weeks to come, I'm going to be making a lot of videos that sometimes they will be directly speaking to an understanding I have about human consciousness, self-identity, psychology, success, etc. from the Bible. And there will be many other times where I show correlation between a different field of study and discipline: biology, psychology, neuroscience, and then how it correlates with and overlaps with principles hidden by the mystics and teachers of old in the Bible. We will then also, at times when it makes sense and is relevant, also correlate all that with other sacred scriptures, texts, works, and teachings. Again, I believe it is my responsibility to give you the full picture as I know it to be, use it, and see it and believe it, because otherwise I'm not being fully transparent with you while telling you this is how you elevate in life, right? I have to give you the whole picture. So when I just want you to know, when I talk about the Bible, when I reference the Bible, it is not from a perspective of religion, religiosity, dogma, telling you that if you don't read the Bible or if you aren't Christian, then you're wrong. That is not it. I am not a Christian. I am a man who has tapped into Christ consciousness, experienced its power in my life, and I wouldn't trade that for anything else in the world. That's how powerful it is for me. And I want to share that with you. And if it calls to you, then you'll be able to tap into it as well and live from that as well. So I just want to make that clear. To me, there is a big difference between Christ consciousness and being Christ-like and what we today know as Christians and the Christian church. And in many respects, they could not be farther apart. In many respects, I see a difference between them as big as it was between the figure and the man of Jesus Christ and the Pharisees and Sadducees that he was constantly berating and calling out. Okay? I'm excited for this. And it's going to give I believe it's going to give a lot more breadth, depth, and rich context to everything that I'm passionate about sharing with you guys. With, again, the only aim here is to help you elevate your consciousness. Think of the chart from Power versus Force and from Dr. Hawkins, right? Starting with shame at the bottom and going to, I believe it's enlightenment at the top. Love or enlightenment, one or the other. Think of elevating your consciousness as going up that chart in terms of your overall state in life. That's my chief aim and mission with this YouTube channel and with the content that I put out, is to help my fellow man, all men, I don't care your color, your creed, or your kind, to elevate in consciousness. If I could accomplish just one thing on earth before I pass my time here, it would be to do that. Because I know what it's like to live in a living hell of being low on that chart. Low energy, negative energy. I know the living hell of that. I've experienced it time and time again. I've eaten my fill of it as a man. I also know what it's like to live in a state of consciousness that is at courage and well above. I've tasted both. I've experienced both. And I know the living hell that it is to be on the lower part of that frequency chart. And I know the absolute heaven on earth, kingdom of heaven, that it is to be higher up the chart. And I have a true passion and desire to help every single one of my fellow humans be able to taste the same thing, experience the same thing, and live from the same thing and have it for yourself. So that's the chief aim here. If you ever wondered, or if you wonder why I do this and what's the whole point of it. And a big part of me illuminating for you what has helped me and worked for me is going to be coming from the book that we know to be the Bible. However, the way I'm going to be sharing it with you, teaching it and explaining it, just might be unlike anything you've ever heard before. I believe that we're having a widespread awakening right now in humanity of consciousness in general, awareness, a waking up, a falling away of the scales over many people's eyes, a proverbial ripping of the curtain